Hi there. Today we're going to discuss constant rate of change. Objectives. Today we're going to find a constant rate of change by using a table and a graph. Standards. We're going to recognize and represent proportional relationships between two quantities. We're going to identify the constant of proportionality or unit rate in tables, graphs, equations, diagrams, and verbal descriptions of proportional relationships. And then we're going to explain what a point x comma y on the graph of a proportional relationship means in terms of the situation. The vocabulary you'll need to know for today is rate of change and constant rate of change. A rate of change is a rate that describes how one quantity changes in relation to another. In a linear relationship, the rate of change between two quantities is the same. The linear relationship has a constant rate of change. Use a table. You can use a table to find a constant rate of change. To find the rate of change using a table, our first step is to find the change in y and the change in x. Step 2 says we have to set up the ratio change in y divided by the change in x. And our last step is to simplify. Make sure this is written down in your notebooks, guys. Okay, so our first example is the table shows the amount of money a booster club makes washing cars for a fundraiser. Use the information to find the constant rate of change in dollars per car. In a table, usually the first column or the first row is going to be your x, and the second column or row is going to be your y. So here the number of cars is considered my x, and my money is considered my y. Find the unit rate to determine the constant rate of change. So we're going to set up the ratio change in money over change in number of cars. So here we have our money is increasing by positive 40. So we're adding 40 each row. That's my y. In my x, you'll notice that my number of cars is increasing 5 in each row. So we'll set up $40 over 5 cars. Now we're going to make a unit ratio, and that's going to equal $8 for one car. Now we're going to just simplify and restate. So the number of dollars earned increases $8 for every car washed. So all we did was divide the change in y's over the change in x's. The next one we're going to use is a graph. You can use a graph to find a constant rate of change and to analyze points on the graph. To find the rate of change using a graph, our first step is we're going to find 2 points. Remember, the points are ordered pairs or coordinate points, and they're x comma y. Step 2 says to set up the ratio just like before, change in y divided by the change in x. And our last step is we're going to simplify. The graph represents distance traveled while driving on a highway. Find the constant rate of change. Normally when I'm picking points, I like to pick the first 2 because the numbers are smaller and they're easier to compute. So I'm going to pick any 2 points. You really can pick any ones that you want because in a constant rate of change, all the ratios are going to be equal. I just, like I said, like to choose the 2 smaller ones or the first 2 ones because the numbers are smaller. So now I'm going to set up the ratio change in y over change in x. Notice that my miles is my y axis. Okay, that's my y. Your miles is your y, and your hours is your x. So that's why we have y over x. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2 points. My y's are my second ones. So I have 60 minus 0 for my y, and then 1 minus 0 for my x. Then I'm going to simplify that, and I get 60 miles for 1 hour. So that means every time I increase an hour, I increase 60 miles. Our next thing we're going to talk about is what do these points actually mean? Remember, in a coordinate pair, the first one is the x, the second one is the y. So in this case, This would be hours, and then it will be miles. So 0, comma 0 is going to be 0 hours and 0 miles. So that means at 0 hours, I traveled, nowhere. So then 1 comma 60 is the same thing. The first one is my hours. The second one is my miles. So in 1 hour, I traveled 60 miles. Here's my last example, and we're going to compare both a table and a graph. The table and graph show the hourly charge to rent a bicycle at 2 different stores. Which store charges more per bicycle? I'm going to take these one at a time. So I'm going to start off with Pedals Rentals. My first step is to find the change in X and the change in Y. Again, my first column is my X, my second column is my Y. So my time is increasing by 1 each row, and my cost is increasing by 12 each row. Now I'm going to set up my ratio of change in Y over change in X. Again, this is my Y and this is my X. So change in cost was 12, my change in time was 1, and now I'm just going to simply state it, $12 for 1 hour. So Pedals Rentals charges $12 for every 1 hour. Now we're looking at the graph. Remember, when we're doing the graph, we have to choose 2 points. Again, I chose my first 2 points, smaller numbers, easier to compute. So I chose 0, 0, and 1 comma 8. So now I want to set up my ratios, change in Y over change in X. Now my Y's are 0 and 8. They're my second ones. So I have 8 minus 0, and then my X's are going to be 0 and 1. So 1 minus 0. Now I'm going to simplify and restate. So it's $8 for 1 hour. So Supercycles charges $8 for every hour. Now I'm just going to compare the two of them. Supercycles increases $8 every hour. Pedals Rentals increases $12 every hour. So Pedals Rentals charges more per hour to rent a bicycle. Today we found the rate of change using a table and a graph. I hope that video was helpful. Thank you. Bye.